Welcome to 3P's podcast. Our third P making up our pod today is Lauren. Hello, Lauren.
Hi.
Hello, Lauren.
Hello.
And of course, we have Sonny across the pond. And apparently the weather is rubbish as he's...
Yeah, shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Okay, so Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Lander, Wyoming, and then moved to Utah when I was 3 years old. So I've lived in Utah pretty much my whole life that I can remember. I got married at the young age of 21, as us Utah girls like to do. And married the love of my life. I met my husband my senior year in high school.
Wow.
Wow, that is lucky and early.
I know. He got me at my prime.
I think you're still in your prime.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got married, lived in Salt Lake for a while, then built a house in Camas, and then missed Park City. That's where we grew up. We went to Park City High, and so then we built our home in Park City, and we've been here for 8 years now. And our kids are going to graduate from Park City High School as well. So,
wow. And that's where you and your husband graduated.
Yeah.
Wow, keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Was that the plan, or did that just all come together?
It just all came together, really. Yeah,
which is quite nice for the kids as well to then do the same thing, same place where you grew.
Yeah,
I'm curious if there's still some of the same teachers there.
Right.
Yeah.
So PE teachers, yes. Yeah. But
so now to put up with your mother.
Yeah. I'm like, don't mention my name.
Well, I think you would be okay. I'm thinking it's your other half that you wouldn't want to mention.
That's true. I'm the rule follower. Nick's the rebel. Let's be honest. Yeah, my teachers loved me. I was like the perfect student, you know. They loved me.
But you liked red flags and followed your husband.
Yeah. A little danger. But yeah, we've been married 20 years in August.
Oh, fantastic.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Thank
and
you.
how old are the kids?
So Kimber is 13. She just turned 13, and Mitchell is 15.
And obviously you have some dogs.
Okay. So I lock them downstairs. So they can, like, you know, try, if they're getting too loud, I will go close the door.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's what makes it fun.
I was waiting to say that's not the dogs, that's the kids.
Yeah, she probably has them locked downstairs too.
They're at school. So
oh, that's funny. Well, a little bit about how we got to know Lauren is Lauren and her husband are awesome. They know how to do everything. And we lived actually in a place in Park City, and they decided to build next door to us. And they were our entertainment for about almost a year and a half. And when I mean entertainment because these two, including her, built that house from ground up. It was a complete blizzard out, and this girl is out planting trees with the backhoe, everything. I was like, God, I can't believe she does all this stuff.
Yeah. Is that why you two are friends? Because that's the sort of stuff you do, plowing snow in the snow.
That's right. That's why we're friends.
Yeah. She was crazy, but it was good. It was definitely our entertainment, like I said, for a year and a half. So good on you, Lauren, for doing that labor of love and building that house.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we'll get down to it. this is actually a topic that surprised me,
Mm.
that it's becoming very common. And I didn't know about it until Lauren had told me what was going on. So it's about body image, eating disorders. And before we get into the main topic, Lauren's going to tell us a little bit about herself and how she overcame this when you were a teenager, correct?
Correct.
Or
Yeah.
okay. So why don't you dive into what happened to you, and then we'll get into
Some questions.
the
Okay.
nitty-gritty of everything else.
Perfect. So my dogs escaped. So do you want me to, before
No, no. Leave them.
they may start
Yeah, they run.
barking?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I'm just gonna go back from the beginning. So I was a chunky kid. Like I was hefty.
But happy.
But happy.
Yeah.
Part until I will never forget, bullying's such a big thing and it can impact someone's life forever. I'll never forget, I was in 3rd grade and this mean little bully Scott decided to start calling me hippo. And that devastated me. Like it was awful, like as a kid, I knew I was chunky. My parents, they knew I was chunky. Like we would talk about it and they would just say, hey, just when you go through puberty, things change, you're an active kid, like, they still like would encourage to eat healthy. But like weight was talked about a lot. And I remember my parents took me to my pediatrician and they said, hey, what can we do to help her lose weight? And the pediatrician was like,
3rd grade?
yeah, like 3rd, 4th, like 5th grade. Yeah. And 3rd grade's when, I started getting called names. And then 4th grade started like getting really sad and like really I would look at the skinny girls and be like, how come I can't look like that? And come home crying. And I didn't want to wear shorts because your legs are a little chunky or whatever. And so yeah, it really started to mess with my thoughts. And so my parents took me to the pediatrician and said, hey, what can we do? She's hungry. She's a hungry girl. And the pediatrician said, have her drink a glass of water before every meal. Hopefully that helps fill her up. And
Yeah.
kind of, back in the early 90s, that's what they told you to do. So I just remember always feeling self-conscious in a swimsuit. From whenever I can remember, always like worried looking at other girls. And it all kind of started then, I would say, really. I don't think that there was like a specific incident that made me want to lose weight. I think it really started when I started to like boys and I was like, oh, he's cute,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, like all these guys are dating these cute girls and they're skinny. So I kind of started just watching more what I was eating, doing more like fruits, vegetables, like all the healthy food.
Yeah.
And then I would say when I was in 8th grade and I started dancing, that's when it all just kind of got bad. When you're spending hours in front of a mirror looking at yourself, why do my leggings fit different than so and so's next to me? You're all getting measured for your costumes. You're like one of the bigger ones, so that really is when it changed. And so then from there on out, I started losing weight slowly, and I would say kind of more healthy because I was becoming more active with dancing and things like that. I would say also that my biggest turning point was after I broke up with a first high school boyfriend. You know, you think you're in love.
Hey, boys will do it to you.
Right?
Yeah.
Thought we were in love. We kind of went through some hard times, broke up, and then that's when I was like, I'm gonna get so skinny. I'm gonna get so skinny, so hot, and I'm gonna get all these guys now, you know, like revenge,
Yeah.
you know.
The
Well,
revenge.
that's either one way or the other, isn't it? You're either just going to
Yeah.
sit there and pick out and cry to a tub of ice cream, or go the other way. So
Right. Mine went the other way. Instead of ice cream, I just stopped eating. So yeah, like I was reflecting the other day, looking back at like what a day looked like. And you know, I'd get up in the morning and my mom, she was always so great. She'd be like, "What do you want for breakfast?" And I was like, "Mom, I'm not too hungry. I'll just have a yogurt." So I'd have a yogurt for breakfast. Lunchtime would come, and in high school, when you can drive, you got to go wherever you wanted for lunch. And I just really started kind of isolating myself a little bit too at lunchtime around food time. You just don't want to be around people. So I would go to a local coffee shop and get like a chai tea latte. And then
yeah,
after school, I'd go dance for 4+ hours and, you know, competitive dancing, which is a lot, and then come home and my mom's like, "Hey, did you have dinner?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I ate on my way home." And then
yeah.
I would go upstairs, do homework, go to bed, and wash, rinse, repeat. So
So I mean, if I go that long without eating anything, I would feel faint.
Yeah, and
Did you
you just
ever
no
like,
energy.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
how did you do it?
I honestly don't know. I did drink a
Caffeine.
ton of water. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
caffeine by
Caffeine.
the same
Yes,
stuff.
yes, yeah. I'd have like,
Was that like because you were doing quite a lot of like you're like misleading people to believe you are eating and being avoidant from people eating because obviously the temptation, was that not very lonely and hard to keep in, like the struggle to like keep the truth away from your family? You really want to eat but you don't, and you can't be
right.
honest.
Right. Yeah, it
Must
was.
be hard.
I hated lying, and I'm a
Mm,
horrible liar, so I was surprised that I pulled it off as long as I did. Um,
yeah,
I remember my clothes just started like, you know, falling off me, and my mom's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just, you know, dancing a
Yeah.
lot." And you know, and the thing is like I was getting complimented, right? People were complimenting me. "Oh my gosh, you look so great." Like,
yeah,
doing? And I was just like, "Oh, just eating healthy and working out," you know, and like the compliments fed that fire, you know, they just
yeah,
kept
Well,
adding.
and two, you could hide it because you were dancing so much. So it wasn't like anybody was really questioning, like,
yeah.
oh
You're eating,
my gosh,
yeah.
what is she doing?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
now, did the boy notice you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
But so did Nick. And
yeah.
Oh,
there our relationship started. So yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah.
And so how did you then realize, okay, wait, this could be a problem?
I would say so. I got down to like a size 0, and then when those started getting kind of loose, I was like, something's not good. Um, I would say I was in a brain fog too. I could see like my ribs in the front and in the back, and
Mm.
it was not like when I look back at pictures, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy.
So what age was that? Because we're
So
gone from
so that was about 17, 18.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
And
so,
how did you hide that from your family if you could see your ribs and just
Right.
very
So
hard?
I really, it's not that I hid it, but we didn't do a ton of things in swimsuits and things like that. And so I was always clothed, you know, so I would
Yeah,
wear like sweatshirts and like baggier, you know, sweatpants, things like that. And so I could hide it pretty good. You know, you
yeah,
became good at like hiding things.
so then you said, I'm going to get revenge, and you became skinny, but it was a very unhealthy skinny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was super unhealthy. And I knew it was, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna get down to where I feel good and then I'll stop.
Mhm.
And then it's just like you just can't stop. You know, you're like, ooh, what if I can do 5 more pounds? You know, you become obsessed with the scale. Obsessed.
Exactly. And then it's like you then are like, okay, I'll gain 5 pounds, then I'll be healthy. But then when you gain those 5 pounds, you're like, oh my God, I got to lose those 5 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you go get help, or you just like, okay, I know this is a problem. I need to really work at this?
Yeah. So I didn't ever go get like professional help. I think graduating from high school, going to hair school, just kind of starting my next chapter of life, like with Nick. I think that, you know, it becomes, you know, we'd go on dates, we'd go to dinner. Like, how do you not eat dinner when you're going on a date with a boy, you know?
That's a cheap date. That's a cheap date.
So yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I think that it just kind of started, I just started kind of healing with Nick in a sense.
Because you were comfortable, you felt secure.
Yeah, because I finally found somebody. Yeah, I was comfortable. Yeah, secure, feeling good about myself. He made me feel good about myself. You know, he would encourage me to eat. I don't know if he ever, you know what? That's a question I didn't ask him, if he ever really knew how bad it was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I think about like Hollywood now, you know, that this whole like Ozempic craze right now, or the semaglutide or whatever, you know, and of course everybody denies it, which, you know, of course you're going to deny. But then it's like their children see them, you know, being skinny, and, you know, the stigma of being overweight and everything, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And you have a daughter that's a dancer and she's really fit. How do you, as a mom, knowing what you went through, how do you like get Kimber not to go down that same path?
Right. So here's what I love about Kimber growing up now. Okay, so there's things that I love and there's things that I hate. Right? So the things, let's start with positive. So the things that I love about Kimber growing up now is, as much as we all pretend that we don't love them, thank goodness the Kardashians became famous, because they have given girls the confidence to have curves. Given girls the confidence to, you know what I mean? Like when I was growing up, you wanted to be like stick straight, you know? You didn't want to booty. Any of that.
I have to interrupt you because I get that they give you, you know, they have these curves or everything.
But they are fake.
However, how many plastic surgeries have they had? I mean, that's a whole other topic.
Right?
If you saw them 10 years ago and then saw them now, they don't look like the same people.
Yes, that's true. But
not look like Chloe anymore.
Yes, no, Chloe doesn't. She's gotten really skinny, so that's hard, right? But like, so I guess Kimber doesn't know that though. Kimber doesn't know that they've gone and gotten like butt implants and boob implants. She doesn't know that. So she looks at, you know, like girls can kind of look, and I just threw them out. I mean, there's plenty of other ones too, but I agree with you. But yeah, so I love that, you know, curves are kind of in, you know, it's okay to be curvy. Like, I mean, you look at a Victoria's Secret magazine now, there's women of all sizes in there, you know. Back when I was looking at Victoria's Secret, looking for, you know, like role models or like images of, you know, perfection, I guess, in a sense.
That was just bones and brittle, yeah.
Exactly. So I do love that more and more companies are bringing real women in, right? Like,
hey, look at Lizzo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lizzo's awesome. Yeah.
Yes, Lizzo is awesome, you know, and so I do love that confidence that it's giving girls. Now, what I don't love is social media. You know, that's really hard for these kids growing up. And, you know, talk about how fake social media is as well. So
But people still get so lost in that, don't they? They know us fake, but they just feel jealous or envious of people, even though most of the stuff they post they can't afford and that's fake, but they still feel like they deserve it. They can work as hard as they can get, but never get to where they want to. And that always makes you feel rubbish, doesn't it? Because you can work as hard as you want and you never get to that point, but knowing full well if you actually saw what their life was really like, they're
Oh
probably
yeah.
miles away from where that picture is. Yeah.
yeah,
Insta fake, you know, and it's
Yeah.
interesting. I watched a documentary last night, and the guy said he got a high off of how many followers he had.
yeah,
And then he's like, I wanted to live this single life because I, videoed my whole entire life. And it was like, I'd wake up and see how many followers. He goes, then I fell in love and I realized that life isn't about the followers, it's who you can share it with,
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people that like on Instagram or like TikTok and all that, it's, what can I do to get these followers? So
Yeah.
Yep.
I've now deleted both my socials.
I know you
Just, I
did.
spend so much time coming home and I just check through things and they're so irrelevant. And I never go on people's pages to then see how they're doing. I just, if they pop up on my feed, I have a look and I just think, I just cannot be bothered to waste so much time in my life when I've got like my kids and stuff in the house. And I'd spend time with my kids, obviously, but sometimes I get caught up in the moment and then 5 minutes turns to 25 minutes. And that's a lot of time away looking at fake stuff than enjoying what's around you. Like, how many times you've been somewhere lovely and you spend more time trying to make a video of that lovely place than actually enjoying it,
yeah,
just so everyone else can see it. And I think just put the lens away and enjoy the moment, and that's our memory. The whole world don't need to know that.
yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah.
So then it sounds like you guys have a pretty open relationship with Kimber that you can say, question it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kimber and I can talk about anything really. And my biggest thing is, Kimber, you just need to be healthy. You know what I mean? We joke, my daughter's a carbaholic. All she eats is carbs, and the girl has a six pack. I don't know how she does it. I mean, we just like, we're just in awe of that. And
Yeah.
so she's just active, she's funny, she's fun. And I don't want her to lose that. So we talk about everything. We talk about nutrition, we talk about, being healthy. And she's like, Mom. So every year we do, at the beginning of the year, we do goals. The kids write out their goals, and every year she writes, I'm going to eat healthier.
Yeah.
And this year she said, Mom, let's just be realistic. That's not going to happen.
Let's get a Chinese.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not even adding that on there. And I was like, you know what? Good for her.
Yeah.
She's just as happy as can be. So
Does she know your struggle for when you went through high school then?
So she doesn't. I haven't
Yeah.
really shared a ton with
Like,
her about
to
that.
make her, yeah.
I don't know. I think it's probably time. I mean, she's my little girl. So I always think of her as younger than she is. I mean, she's 13 now, and I think I should, really share that with her, and she can listen to this as well, and then maybe ask me questions.
Yeah, that must make you proud for her to even want to be healthy like that without even know your struggle. Because obviously, if she did know your struggle, you'd think she was only doing it for you. But
Yeah.
that's nice to know that she's doing it for herself without knowing you went through that. That's what I was trying to get to.
Exactly. Well, and she watched her brother, which we're going to get into, but she watched her brother struggle. And so she watched how emotional it was on our whole family. And so I think that there's that as well. She just, she knows that stuff has happened. She was well aware of what was going on. So I think that maybe can be a learning lesson for her as well.
And I think too, at 13, obviously, I know you probably don't want this, but at some point she's going to start dating, and and I've seen Kimber dance. Holy cow. And I've seen Kimber. She definitely has a six pack, and then you have to realize, and then you have to think as a mom, are these boys dating Kimber for Kimber or, because the last time I saw Kimber dance, there was a lot of cheers out in the audience. And boys will be boys,
Yeah,
Sonny.
a lot of red flags. Your mum was going no and no and no.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, is you kind of developed your habit through as a result of a breakup. I had a very similar thing that happened to me. And it's so weird when you were saying your story, because I said that same exact thing. I was going to get revenge. But I had to go get professional help because I couldn't stop. And so it's them dang first loves,
It's so true.
So, and I'm sure, as she goes into high school and starts dating, that's something you have to be worried about as well,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So,
sure. So I want to always, and I tell my kids this, I'm like, I will never get mad at you for anything that we talk about, like I want you to be able to come to me and talk to me about anything. But I'll give you advice and I might not like it, but if you come to me and talk to me about it, then I'm not going to get mad at you about it, and that comes with like anything.
And then do you, I mean, I'm sure you promote like, hey, you need to love who you are. You need to accept.
Yeah, that's the worst of it, like, because you can meet a guy and then you can notice little changes in your daughter because she's changing for him. And you think, I want my daughter to stay the same and somebody to love her for her.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that we all change a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I want it to be changed for the good.
Yeah.
You don't want her to lose who she is.
Yes. I don't want her to get lost. Yeah.
Well, you kind of mentioned it. So this is why we are talking about this, is because your son Mitchell had an eating disorder, and doing a lot of research, it's becoming more common than people realize. And it's not talked about, men having eating disorders. And, a lot of them are dying from it. So would you like to share Mitchell's story with us, please?
Yeah, for sure. So Mitchell, little background on him, he's been playing hockey since he was 6 years old. His dad plays hockey, so he put him on skates and he's just loved it. It may have even been 5. But anyway, he's been playing hockey. He loves it. Been playing with the same group of, for the most part, of kids his whole life. Things start changing when you get older. You go different teams, this and that, but it's always been kind of the Park City Ice Miner crew. And Mitchell was like me and Nick, where my husband was a little chunky growing up too. And Mitchell always just was a little chubby as well. Nothing wrong with that. And we would always tell him, oh, hey, because he'd ask about it. Hey, mom, like, how come I'm a little bit bigger than all my friends? And we'd say, oh, that'll change when you go through puberty. I mean, with boys, it really does,
You have to play defense.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's just like one day you're like, what just happened? Their voice changes, their bodies change, all of that. And so we just kept reassuring him. And he's an active kid, but he also loved to, have ice cream and like eat all the good things too. And we're big on not depriving, not telling him don't eat that, because I got that a lot when I was a kid, and then it makes you really like feel
anxious.
bad. And you feel guilty about eating something. And I never wanted my kids to feel guilty about eating anything. I just didn't. So
just enjoy it.
Yeah, just enjoy it. But like I would dish out ice cream, and of course he wouldn't have the whole thing. I would give him a couple scoops, so I was as mom trying to limit it without him knowing,
Well, and it's like, then it becomes like the forbidden fruit. And then when they go to a neighbor's house and they're like, oh my gosh, I gotta eat this.
Yes.
So,
it's like they're obsessed about it. And I just didn't want them to become obsessed about food like I had, And so anyway, so fast forward, it was the summer of 2021 when Mitchell really started losing a lot of weight. And we were on a family vacation with my in-laws. My mother-in-law had retired, so we went on a big retirement family vacation. We went to Bear Lake, so boating and stuff, and all the family was like, Mitchell, you look so great. Have you been, like, and it's so innocent, right? When someone says, have you been losing weight? Like, you look so great. It's people just try to compliment you,
Yeah.
but he's like me. He took that
Yeah.
compliment and was like, oh, I'm getting a
Yeah.
lot of attention. This feels good, you know what I mean? And come to find out, it was because I had asked him, oh man, sorry, I don't want to fast forward too much, but I had asked him what it was exactly that triggered him with the eating disorder. And he said that he loved when we went to Bear Lake, the compliments that all the family was giving him. And he also said that it stemmed from somebody in the locker room at hockey made a comment about, Mitchell, why are you so fat?
Yeah.
And
So
so
give me goosebumps big time.
yeah. So that made me angry, as a mom. I'm like, I'm gonna find that little stinker that said that, and, like
Great save. That's a great save.
as a mom, you're like, what the heck? You're like so mad. But kids are mean. Kids are mean to each other. They just are.
Yeah.
Well, words hurt,
Words
Yeah.
and
That is the hardest thing, right? This day and age, that you slowly. Obviously, your kids are older now. My little boy's only 4 or 5 in next month, and they slowly through the years, when they go to school, get the higher into school, they slowly lose their innocence just because the torment they get from other kids.
Mhm.
Like they look like my little boy was so innocent when he went to his first school. He's only been there a year and he's completely changed. This little butch boy want to fight me all the time. And I'm like, I love that, but I still miss my little sweet boy. He comes in and gives me a cuddle. So
Yeah.
at the age of 15, obviously he's been through a lot of torment, and obviously them little remarks slowly eat away at you.
Mhm. They do, and they do. They slowly lose their innocence, and it's
so
sad,
I'm just trying to get, so when you guys went to Bear Lake, he was what, 13-ish?
Yes, he was
So
13-ish, yes, and it was right after, the pandemic, right? Like, I mean, we were still in it in 2021, like, it was still a thing, we were still wearing masks everywhere, I mean, and I read a really crazy, a crazy article came across, and it was, that during the pandemic, eating disorders in teens were at an all-time high. Also, teens visiting the ER for eating disorders doubled during the pandemic. And it gives me chills because
why do you think that was?
I honestly think it was because, it's a control thing. These poor kids had no control over what was going on, not being able to go to school, not being able to hang out with their friends, almost like trapped and stuck. And
That's
that
got to be boredom as well. And so you sit there, if you watch a film, you're going to snack. And if you end up watching, you're stuck indoors for 24 hours a day, you're playing games and snacking, you're just getting lost in it. Not
yes,
realizing that every day went so fast, weeks turned to months. And
yeah,
Mhm.
it's so true. And I think that it was their way of having control over
coping,
something.
yes, cope.
Yeah.
What some way of coping, just that little bit of satisfaction of eating an extra bag of crisps it makes you happier than sitting there doing nothing, though, doesn't it? If you're going to sit there and farm that away rather than then go out on the streets and you can think the only way I'm getting happy is eat all my favourite snacks and goodies and cook and
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you know, I'm sure everybody does. You think of having an eating disorder as a female disease. This is going to totally age me, but, we think about the first person that we all kind of knew with an eating disorder that passed away from it was Karen Carpenter. She was a singer, and she eventually died of, her eating disorder. So I think from that point, it was a female disease.
I think Lisa was on to a good point about
Yes.
that being a disease for women, and because that was your son, that must have been a bit more scary because obviously that's
Yeah, and it's crazy, I was okay, so as far as it is scary when it's your son. So we started noticing, him losing a lot of weight. He started playing back at hockey again after the summer, and he was like lethargic. You could just tell, I could just tell when he was on the ice, that wasn't him. You know what I mean? Um, and he would just come home and just be exhausted. Um, he ate a lot of soup because there's not a lot of calories in soup. He, was just really so funny about what he was eating. He would pick up something, look at the calories, and then put it back. And it was just devastating. And there were times when he would eat pretty good, but then, I can't control, once again, when he goes off to school.
yeah.
Is he eating his lunch? What's going on? So I remember we were driving down, it was in October for one of his hockey tournaments in Vegas, and I was just crying. And my husband was driving, Mitchell was sleeping in the back of the car, and I was Googling, trying to find a solution for him, a place for help for a teenage boy who's going through an eating disorder. And I was just in tears because a lot of these places are for girls. There's not a lot of places for
How
boys.
husband feel about him having this?
Nick was just beside himself. He's like, what is going on? And he just couldn't imagine, and I knew what was going on,
Had
and
you confronted Mitchell at this point?
so at this point, no, we hadn't really confronted him. It was after that trip that we did, and we said, listen, bud. I mean, my parents were calling me in tears. People on Facebook, Instagram were
Yeah.
I noticed.
Yeah, they're like, is your son sick? Like, is everything okay? Nick's
That's
parents
heartbreaking.
crying, everyone trying to give advice for what to do. As a parent, you don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? You're like, I am trying my best. Like
Yeah.
we're doing everything that we can. We're trying not to blow this completely up. I was worried, is he going to get kicked off the hockey team? Like, just, are his friends going to alienate him because boys don't have eating disorders, right? Actually 10% of eating disorder cases are men. And then they say it's 1 in 3, but men are the most likely to die from an eating disorder because they go the longest without getting treatment. Which was,
But again, that goes back to the male ego of not wanting to show weakness, doesn't it? So you don't want to admit to your friends that you're struggling or you're suffering with something because you think you've got it under control, and you don't want to seem weak, which is still, I think this will go on for hundreds of years, that ego problem. Despite a lot of men this day and age have come out a bit more, and they are open to when they've got problems, but I still never get all the men in the world because they're just dominant and have to be the strength.
And it's so funny, it's just, men are strong. They're just the strong ones, right? And so, they don't want to show weakness. They don't want to show that, for the most part, right? I do love that it's becoming more acceptable.
More, yeah.
And I do love seeing that. And so, we finally told Mitchell, we're like, we've got to take you to the doctor. We need to get you a overall health check.
Check your levels on everything.
And so we took him to the pediatrician. She took his weight. She took like all of his vitals, all of that. And, you know, we told her what was going on, and she just started talking to Mitchell, and she's like, listen, bud, like you're gonna, and it was right at that time when it makes me so sad, because I'm like, oh, if it could have been a year later, right? Because it was right at that time when he was starting to go through puberty. He was starting to grow. He was starting to kind of lean out on his own. And then it just took it to a whole nother extreme, you know? And she,
Yeah.
like, if you want to continue growing, you need to eat. You need to be healthy. You know, you're so active, like you need to be eating twice as much as you normally would. Well, he didn't want to hear that. You know, no one wants to hear that when you've got a mental battle going on inside of your mind, you know. And
Yeah.
so, anyway, so we started doing weekly blind weigh-ins. I told her, I said, he can't see the scale. He doesn't want to see the scale. I hid the scale at the house because he was weighing himself all the time. So that was already hidden. I think everyone should just throw their scales away, to be honest.
Yeah.
And because it becomes obsessive, you know.
Yeah.
And so we would do blind weigh-ins every week with the pediatrician. He would go see a nutritionist every week, and she went over the importance of being an athlete and the food that you should be eating as an athlete. You know, food is fuel. That's what helps you go faster, stronger, all of that. And then he also saw a therapist, and it was a male therapist, and he did okay with him. Mitchell's a really smart kid. He's smarter than I'll ever be. He's so smart. He's got such an old soul. He's wiser beyond his years, and he knew, he's like, I'm just going to tell him what he wants to hear so I can get this over with. You know what I mean? He's like, this is ridiculous. He hated that part the most. But I would sit in. I said, do you want me to sit in with you, buddy? And he's like, yeah, I do. I don't want to be in there by myself. And that made me feel good, because I feel like we really started kind of having a bond. And he,
Yeah.
you know, and here's the craziest part. So my kids never knew what I went through. But I remember at the pediatrician, when she did that first check that I was telling you about, she was like, has anyone in your family ever had an eating disorder? And my husband looks at me, because he knew, you know, that I struggled. I don't think he knew how bad I struggled, but he knew. And I was like, yeah, I did. And I'll never forget the look on Mitchell's face when he looked over at me, and he was just like, you know, like he couldn't believe it, you know?
You've done this. You've been here where I am. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's why he'll open up to me about things, because he knows that I went through those struggles that he is going through. And I don't know if anyone ever heals 100% from something like that, you know? I just think that it's
You know,
always there.
you said the whole thing about the scale thing, and it's interesting you say that, because you know, I had my own struggles and everything, and I decided, okay, before I turned, you know, I won't say the age, but I wanted to be in the best shape of my life. So I hired a personal trainer and everything, and he has me step on the scale every morning. And I said, well, look, I said, I have struggled in the past, and I don't know if that's the best thing. And now I have found that I am becoming obsessed with it.
Yep.
And it may only be ounces that I'm gaining. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, I just drank like 3 sips of coffee. Maybe I shouldn't have drank that coffee, you know? And so now it's like, I know that I'm becoming a bit obsessed with it, and I need to tell my trainer, like, hey, I can't do this every single day thing. I need to, maybe once a week, maybe once every other week, because I'm becoming a bit obsessed with it.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. And it's easy to become obsessed with it, you know?
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It was crazy because I learned so much. I did not know that eating disorders were genetic. I was doing a little research on this, and they say that between 40 to 60% of eating disorders come from genetic factors. And
Wow.
Yeah, I never did that.
wow, I had no idea. And that anorexia often runs in families, suggesting that it has a genetic component. So, you know, to me, that's wild. I'm like,
Did
how?
you call your mum and say, "Did you used to be really fat, mum"? Was it you
I
guys
was just
too?
thinking, Sonny, your kids will never have a problem.
Yeah. Mum, why did you never tell me you were fat?
Right? It's just crazy. It's crazy.
And it's not funny in any means,
No.
but
Yeah,
you
but
know,
those bullet points are what the podcasts are for. So when people like, I never knew that information, and they're the little things that pop in. It's like a lot of people might be suffering now, thinking maybe someone above me, but maybe my mother, if I could open up to her and I could now talk to her, because if that I've now learned that I can actually open up. And if my mum then said, like your daughter, maybe if she listens to this, then she's obviously going to want to talk to you about it, and obviously you're happily going to have to tell her.
Yeah. Well, and if you can just help one person, right, with something.
Yeah, just
1,000%.
to
Yes,
just to
1,000%.
release that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I really think that Mitchell's, we gave him the tools that he needed, and we're big on, okay, you have the tools, use them. But he also is his own person, and he is very stubborn like me. He is very, like
Yeah.
he's gonna do what he's gonna do. And I'll still see a few tendencies every now and then, or like,
That's encouraging though.
yeah, because I really, once again, I don't think that you're ever 100% cured from something like that,
Yeah, but that kind of going back to that moment when you admitted that in that room, he must have looked at you and thought, "How is my mum that strong?" And like obviously you're a good-looking lady. You must think my mum looks really strong and she's a positive woman and she's been through all this, so maybe I can get past it. So right there, that is that bond, isn't it? You think, well,
Yeah, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, you can talk to me about it, about it anytime, you can ask me questions, and he has here and there, but I let it be up to him when he wants to.
yeah, that's got to be a lot of relief for him, because before, I mean, he must have been anxious to open up and say something, but now he knows that he can
He's
talk
not
to you
alone.
about it. Yeah, he's not alone, and
Alone.
even in
And
that
he has
house.
somebody that he truly, truly loves that went through it as well. And and that's how I was when I first went and got professional help. I was ashamed. Like I was like, don't tell anybody where I went, and I was really embarrassed. But now I'm like, you know what? I'm not ashamed. It's who I am. It's what made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And I feel like you said, I have the tools, I have the knowledge of not to do that. And, you did it, kind of for a boy. I did it for a boy. And guess what? Nobody is worth it. And you said something to me that really stuck with me. You said that you went to the coach and told the coach what had happened. And they now have a rule, which I think is fantastic. If you could share that.
So yeah, I went to Mitchell's coach and I told him what was going on. And I just said, hey, Mitchell's really struggling with his eating. There's been, it came from a comment that was made in the locker room. And now, they have a parent chaperone always in the locker room, which I think is perfect, because that locker room, I tell you, it's toxic.
Yeah.
Even at the dance studio, there used to be a locker room for the girls and dancers and boys, a separate one for the boys, to change in. And she finally just got rid of it, because she's like, that is the most awful toxic place for people to be, because it's away from adult supervision. Things are being said, and that's where those words really hurt. So I love now that there are adult chaperones in the locker room. Kids will be kids, they still will like joke and say things, but I don't think ever to an extent now that
so those little hurtful digs that eat away at your soul, like they probably get shut down because there's an adult there.
yeah, or they're like, someone's finally saying, hey, don't say that to someone, whereas before they just say it and then they don't get in trouble for saying something.
I think when you're that young, you don't realize how hurtful some words can be, because they're just some words. But when you're really struggling with difficulties, they affect you for a long time.
They do for sure. So that's been super helpful, I think, not only for Mitchell, but for other kids. If that can help them to not start having an eating disorder from a comment that someone said, hey, if it helps one person, then
that's worth every minute.
Now, do you still do check-ins with Mitch? Like, do you check with his coach? Like, if they're on a travel, game and you weren't able to attend or something, do you still check in and say, hey, did Mitchell eat? Or, what, is he fueling enough for his activities he's doing and stuff like that?
So the cool thing is that Mitchell, being around his friends, he eats so good when he's around his friends. Like his friends these are growing teenage boys. They're having like massive amounts of food, and so that's what I love, is that he's around that, so he wants to fit in, right? So he's also shoveling that food in and eating. So he does really good actually being around friends and eating. I think it's more when he's alone that he doesn't do so maybe well. I mean, he's doing better, but when he's alone, it's not fun to eat alone, right? Like it's like drinking, like it's more fun to drink with friends.
More fun to drink with Lisa.
Of course it is.
I've seen her cabinet. That is a party in itself.
She is a party.
But again, that's the same. That's that saying where you are your own worst enemy. So when he's on his own, he battles himself. But your friends will say, "Go on, you eat the last piece of pizza," and it's like, "Yeah, I'll eat it then." But when you're at home, you think maybe I've ate too much. Like he's battling himself. Bless his heart.
Well, and that's a thing too, off a different subject. We have a male friend that, he's single, and he's like, I said, how about I cook for you and put everything in your fridge? And he goes, I don't like to eat alone. I'm just going to come to your house all the time and eat, and I'm fine with that. But it's, even if I cook for him, he doesn't want to eat alone. He wants to be, talking with somebody or whatever. And so I get that a little bit, now when I'm alone, I'm like, ooh, donuts. Nobody can see me eat this. No. But now I have a question. Is the scale still hidden?
So the scale isn't still hidden because Mitchell wants to gain weight now. So Mitchell gets excited now when he gains weight because he knows that he's getting stronger. I explained to him muscle weighs more than fat. He loved hearing that, so like I've gained 3 pounds or whatever. But like, he's not obsessive about getting on the scale. It's maybe once a week, maybe.
Excuse me.
But,
was that a chihuahua?
yeah, so that's kind of a relief, so he wants the scale to see if he's gaining weight, and I love that. And actually that was one of the biggest things last year when he signed to be on the Golden Eagles team. They said, Mitchell, we want you to be part of this team, but you have to gain weight.
Yeah.
And I think him hearing that from coaches and their nutritionist, that they wanted to hear that he wanted, that they wanted him.
Yeah.
So ever since then, it's been good. You know, he's looking good. He's looking healthy. His face looks healthy. You know, he's still a skinny kid,
Yeah.
but
But
muscular.
he's still maturing. He's still at that age where he's still got a good few years to then butch up and be. I think that's like a strange time to go through that, because obviously you're going through puberty, and that's, yeah. But now he's got positive friends and good coaches. That's a better,
Yeah.
a
And
better path.
he's a healthy skinny
Yes.
than
Yeah.
where he was before. And as a mom, do you worry? Because Sonny, I don't know if you guys have this in the UK, but we definitely have a thing called the freshman 15. And that's when you're a freshman in college, you can tend to gain weight because
Yeah.
you're not living at home, you're, experiencing new things in college. And and like I said, I think that as a mom, you've given him those tools that, he will, think in the future, like, hey, this isn't a problem and I can get through, So I hope you as a mom won't worry as much because you've done your job and given him his tools, and he knows what, he's smart enough and he knows what he's going to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just tell him like, hey, bud, like this is lifelong, you know?
Wow.
Recently I found myself being really hard on myself because I gained during the pandemic. We were talking about, eating your favorite things, feeling good because nothing else felt good then.
Yeah.
And I was also dealing with my son having an eating disorder. So anytime, it was crazy. My friends are like, how did you gain, like, okay, because we were talking about it and I was like, I gained like 40 pounds. They're like, what? And I said, yeah. It's like, because every time I would have just had lunch and then like Mitchell would be like, hey mom, I need lunch. Or, I would try to get Mitchell to have lunch. He wouldn't necessarily ask for it, right? But I'm like, oh, bud, it's lunchtime. So then it's like, I had to eat with him. And so I was having like 2 lunches, 2 dinners, and like,
Oh,
I was like, wow, this is crazy because I didn't want him to eat alone. And so
yeah. And you
he
wanted to see him. You wanted to see him eat as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so if he's wanted to eat, and then he's like, well, why aren't you eating? So anyway, so it became this thing. But yeah, it's crazy because, I found myself finally like losing the weight and feeling better about myself too. And you just start thinking, okay, if I just don't eat, maybe like breakfast, and then maybe, like, and then your mind starts going down that rabbit hole and you just have to stop yourself and you have to
So
say,
I
when
was going to ask if, sorry, I was going to ask if that all that was going to trigger your past experiences while going through it with your son, and just answered this. That's a hard role to deal with, isn't it? The battling your own
yeah,
demons.
Yeah,
yeah,
well, I was going to ask you because I've seen you, and you've lost well over that 30 or 40 pounds you said you gained.
Mhm.
How, when you're losing that, are you thinking, oh my gosh, Mitchell's going to see this and be like, I need to, how did you feel about losing the weight and Mitchell seeing you losing that weight?
Yeah, that was hard. I
Yeah.
felt like I was trying to hide it once again. Like I was getting those same feelings from back when I was trying to hide it before, right? And so yeah, it was tricky, and I just had to tell Mitchell, I gained a lot, and I'm just trying to get healthy. Like mom's having a hard time hiking with dad without getting out of breath here, like, like I gotta do something, you know what I mean? And so he understood, and he's cute. He's like, mom, you want some gummy bears? And so I think him and I kind of have like this little bond now, and
Yes.
it sounds
Yeah.
horrible. It's a horrible bond to have because I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but at the same time we get each other,
Yeah, you wouldn't want him to have that bond with anyone but bar you or his father. So that's quite a sweet, and that's bad. The bond is, yeah, as
Yeah,
you say,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not the best bond to have, but you're glad he's got it with you.
Exactly. Because yeah, we can kind of, get each other, and
Yeah.
we have each other's back.
So therapy, even if it didn't help him at the start, just that one conversation in that room that day with him and you changed everything.
It did. Yeah, I really think it did. So.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it has a happy ending,
Yeah.
as it does. And because as we're finding out, most don't.
Yeah.
And I found this quote that I wanted to read, and I just thought it was really apropos for this topic. It says, beauty is not just skin deep, it is a reflection of your whole self. Love and enjoy the person you are inside.
Mhm.
And, I think so many of us look at the people on the outside, and that's what they want to be on the inside. And, I think people need to love themselves,
True to themselves.
be true to themselves. And, it's been really great, Lauren, for you to share your story with us. And, thank you. And we do have some resources that we will post on our, Instagram page, our website. And there's Sonny, there's a BEAT eating disorder, and it's strictly for men in the UK. And it's hashtag help men get help. And I think that's really, really something maybe that the US needs to embrace as well.
Well, maybe we should contact them and try and get them as the third P.
Yeah, that would be really for the fourth.
That'd be a good insight, yeah.
Back.
Yeah.
And but I just think that's really great because men are they're now seeking out help, and I think it's fantastic. So good for the UK,
Yeah. I would be on that phone if I didn't have IBS, trust me. I'd be on that every week, so I just can't stop.
Well, Lauren, thank you.
Yeah.
And we wish you and Mitchell,
All the best.
your family, all the best. And so thank you. And
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a great pleasure. Everybody have a wonderful day, and thank you.